Hi, this is Jim Peters with Peters Principles, and tonight we have Dr. TitusPlomaritis for his fourth visit. Tonight we're going to hear something special from Dr. Plomaritis about his being a presidential confidant and a political player. Yep. Would that be a fair way to put it?
Very fair, yes.
Okay, and we're looking forward to this because it's an interesting story. So, Dr. Plomaritis, go right ahead.
Well, I'll tell you, Jim, I was involved in 3 very historical campaigns, political campaigns, and they are historical. The first one, let me give you a little prelude first. In New Hampshire, we had a chiropractic, a very old, archaic chiropractic law. Mm-hmm. It hadn't been changed since the early 20s, 1921. So we became a dumping ground for all the unqualified students, the ones that graduated from non-accredited schools. And I made up my mind when I went to New Hampshire, because at the time I graduated from chiropractic college, Massachusetts was not a licensed state, and chiropractors were being arrested for practicing medicine without a license. And at that time, we had 3 children, and Claire was expecting our 4th child, and I felt it wasn't fair to jeopardize the family, my family, her safety. So I opted to move to New Hampshire, albeit the law was terrible. I figured I'd go there and I'd spend my days trying to improve the law, bring it up to standard.
Right.
In the meantime, Governor Volpe signed a bill in Massachusetts in 1966 legalizing chiropractic. I established myself in New Hampshire in 1958, 1959. So by the time it became legal in Massachusetts, my family was established in New Hampshire, and we opted to stay there. Right. So I dedicated my career, my life, to change the law and to remove the unaccredited candidates from coming in to protect the consumer against unqualified practitioners. Therefore comes the first campaign.
Right.
Claire, who was a dedicated wife and mother, sacrificed her ambition of she wanted to go to law school, mm-hmm. to becoming my wife, mother of our children, and very dedicated, may I say. So when the children grew up, she felt that she wanted to do something additional, and she wanted to help the community, so she ran for office. Okay. And she asked me if I'd be her campaign manager, and I said I'd love to. So that was my first campaign experience. And getting Claire elected served 2 purposes. One, it would help me have somebody in at the State House to let me know what's going on as far as the chiropractic legislation, mm-hmm. so I keep my eye on it. Well, we gave her a presidential campaign, and she had never run for office before, and she came out second to the chairman of the board that was re-elected 5 consecutive terms, mm-hmm. and she got elected, and she was the first female in Pelham, New Hampshire, to get elected in 230 years. Historic achievement.
It is a historic achievement.
Well, make a long story short, I know we got a little topic to cover here. When she was due for her re-election, she got re-elected. We gave her another campaign, but her re-election campaign encompassed the governor. Mm-hmm. Now, we tried to pass the bill 3 times in my term, and every time we got it to the governor's desk, the governor vetoed it. He vetoed the bill. We were trying to bring accreditation to the state of New Hampshire. So on the re-election campaign, it was time to look at another candidate for governor, because we had a Republican named Mel Thompson, and he was a 3-term incumbent. Now, running against him were 2 Democrats. One was Hugh Gallen, and the other one was Downing from Salem.
Right.
And he had befriended Claire and I, writing a resolution in the State House, a real good resolution, and he was a good friend. However, he asked me when he came to my home, we had the first Democratic picnic in the town of Pelham, and we had Senator McIntyre came, and we had the 2 U.S. representatives, the 2 senators, and the 2 gubernatorial candidates. They all came to this picnic. I have a very nice picture of that, which I'll give you so you can use it.
Okay.
And Hugh Gallen, let me say that our incumbent senator, Del Downing, asked me if I would support him, and I said, no, I can't. And he said, why? I said, because you have been playing both sides of the aisle here. You're telling me that you're going to support us, and when the bill gets there, you support, and you're taking money from the non-accredited school and the non-accredited candidates, and you're double teaming, or you're two-facing me,
Right.
and my people won't stand for this any longer. I'm gonna support, because I was the chairman of the Political Action Committee, and they were using me as a model, my group, and they wanted me to make the decision because we're having a picnic at my house. Now, an unknown car dealer named Hugh Gallen came up to me and he said, Titus, I know how much you want accreditation of the chiropractic profession in New Hampshire, and I want you to know, if you don't support me and I get elected, which he had a snowball's chance in hell of getting elected, he said, I will support accreditation. But if you support me and I get elected, I'll hand carry that sucker through the Senate for you. He's referring to the bill,
Right.
chiropractic bill for accreditation. I use that term to go to every we had 100 chiropractors in our association, and there were probably twice as many from the non-accredited element. And they're trying to keep that state open so they can bring students in from the non-accredited schools, because they were shutting down state after state, so these non-accredited schools had no place to go.
Right.
So I passed this message on to my 100 chiropractors in the state, and we had a meeting, and I told them, I said, Hugh Gallen said that if we support him and he gets elected, he'll hand carry this bill through the Senate for us. And I went to every single chiropractor. I got there's a car dealer in Lawrence at that time, Park Hagerty. I went into Park Hagerty and I said, would you donate a Volkswagen bus? I see you got a couple out in the lot here. He said, why would I donate a bus? I said, because I'm going to see to it that Hugh Gallen gets elected. And I'm going to put signs on that bus, and I'm going to drive it all over the state. You'll get a lot of exposure for your Volkswagen dealership. She said, let me talk to my partner. So Dick goes in to talk. Dick Hagerty goes in and talks to his partner. He comes out, he said, Titus, we're not only going to supply the bus for you, we're going to paint it for you. and they painted on the bus, Gallen for governor. We called that our Gallen mobile. And I drove that bus 15,000 miles, Jim, up north, south, east, and west, all over the state. I got signs from the governor's office. I'd take a sign out and I'd pound it in the lawn, and I'd go into the office and I'd say, like Dr. Houseline, who was up in Nashua, they were all Republicans. There was 80% of them were Republicans. Right. And they say to me, Titus, I can't do that. I'm going to lose my patients. And I tell them what the governor said. I said, you want to get accreditation in the state? Well, you're going to have to get off your butt and you're going to have to do something. I can't do it alone. They said, okay, all right. Leave it in there. I come back a week later, the sign's gone. So I pump in another sign. I had to go, some doctors I had to go 4 or 5 times to pump signs in the lawn. But eventually they were all in there. And then I'd be distributing literature that were Hugh Gallen's literature. And then I got literature from the American Chiropractic Association explaining what accreditation was and how you had to get an accrediting agency through the United States Department of Education. I went through an awful lot, and I got these I got everything moving really well. So much so that Walter Dunphy was the head. He was the big head of the Democratic headquarters in New Hampshire,
Right.
and he also had all the hotels around the whole United States and the world.
He owned the Parker House, which was...
That's right, the Parker House too.
Yeah.
But he came from Lowell.
Right.
Originally, I played football with him and his brother when they played on the Sandlot ball.
Okay.
So about a week into the campaign, I'm driving a bus, I'm dropping off signs, I'm putting literature in the chiropractor's office, and I'm going with this bus with the speakers on it. And I had, it's interesting, I had a guy named Frank Elliott.
Mm-hmm.
His son was the mayor last year in the city of Lowell.
Okay.
Elliott. And his father, Frank, was on the microphone with me. He rode in the Gallimobile with me, and he loved the microphone.
Yeah.
So he would, whenever we pulled out, we're driving, there'd be 4 or 5 people sitting on a bench somewhere, and he'd say, "Good evening or good afternoon, gentlemen. We are from Governor Gallen's office. We'd like you very much to support him for governor. He'd make a great governor. And he's in favor of this, in favor of that." Frank had a great gift of gab. He loved to get on that microphone. Anyway, make a long story short, when it came time for the election, in the primary, Hugh Gallen defeated Del Downing big time. And Del Downing was a 5-time re-elected state senator.
Right.
So he defeated him. And then so that made him to be the Democratic nominee.
Right.
Now he has to run against Mel Thompson. We carried on this campaign right to the very, very end. And on the very last week of the campaign, I had 100 chiropractors ask their best patient, 100 patients, to write a letter, to write an envelope, and we put in that envelope Hugh Gallen's commitment to sponsor accreditation.
Mm-hmm.
And we had each one of those envelopes with a stamp on it. We brought it to the governor's office. I had 10,000 envelopes. We brought it in, going to 10,000 dedicated chiropractic patients the week before the election.
That's great. Okay.
And that night on the election, when the campaign was, they were announcing it on TV. I had my committee at my home. We were watching TV. We got so dejected because the 3 commentators, ABC, NBC, they all predicted Mel Thompson the winner.
Yeah.
And about 45 minutes later, Walter Dunphy calls me up. He said, "Titus, turn your TV back on." He said, "The late results coming in are all coming in Hugh Gallen's favor." So lo and behold, he was right. He said to me, "Get your group in that Gallimobile and come on up here to headquarters. We're going to celebrate." So I got them all in the wagon. There were like 8 of us in the Volkswagen bus.
Right.
And Frank is on the microphone. We're driving all the way up to Manchester. These loudspeakers going, "Come up and..." He's yelling about Hugh Gallen is winning the election. Turn on your television. Because everybody felt that Mel Thompson had won.
Right.
Okay, he gets elected. Now, the very first thing he does, the very first meeting he goes to, he gets on the microphone. This is Hugh Gallen now.
Yeah.
And he says, "If I had 2 TitusPlomaritis, I'd run for president." So now we're getting into the president's election now.
Right.
My 3rd campaign. I had Claire, now I got to Hugh Gallen. Now we get to the President of the United States. I'm up in the state capitol, and I'm outside on the floor talking to Claire. She's getting ready to go in for a bill, because I was Governor Gallen's personal photographer. I got a badge that he gave me, so it allowed me to go through the State House, and whenever Jimmy Carter came in or any dignitaries come in, it allowed me to get behind the rope, where they sectioned off where the general media and the press could have us stay behind that rope, but it allowed me to get in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I became a professional photographer because when I went to Boston University, I studied my minor was audiovisual aids, and I became a professional photographer. So that's what gave me that skill of being the governor's photographer. All right, now, Hugh Gallen opens the door, and he said, "Titus, can you come in my office for a minute?" And I said, "Yes, I'd love to." He said to me, "Jimmy Carter called me, and he said, Kennedy wants to run against me. He wants to embarrass me in New Hampshire. He wants to run against me, and he feels that he's got legs up in New Hampshire because he's so close to Massachusetts, and there's a lot of Democrats on the southern border, and he figures he needs help.
Right.
He wants to know if you can help him." I said, "No, I can't." He said, "Why?" I said, "Because they don't have chiropractors included in the Medicare bill." So Hugh Gallen takes me in his office. He gets on the telephone. He got a phone. He calls up directly to the White House, and he speaks to the president's secretary.
Right.
And he said, "This is Hugh Gallen." He says, "I'm returning Jimmy Carter's call. He called me back a little while ago, and he wanted me to get Titus to see if he could help me." He said, "Can you get him on the phone?" So she says, "Well, he's got a couple of cabinet members here right now. I'll put a note in front of him, and when he gets a break, he'll call you back." I bet you it wasn't 30, 40 seconds later, the phone rings. I'm sitting down next to the governor, and Hugh Gallen picks up the phone. He said, "It's Jimmy Carter on the other end." He says, "Hi, Hugh, this is Jimmy." He said, "What can I do for you?" He said, "Well, you told me to ask Titus to come in." He says, "And Titus said he can't support you because you don't have chiropractors in the Medicare bill." He said, "I do too." So he said, "Well, here, you talk to him." So he gives me the telephone. I'm talking to Jimmy Carter. I said, "Your Excellency." He said, "Never mind that. You call me Jimmy." I said, "Well, okay, you call me Titus. We're on a first name basis." He said, "You do. We have you on the Medicare bill." I said, "Jimmy, we are in there with a mandate. And the mandate says you can go, Medicare patients can go to chiropractors providing they're referred by a medical doctor." I said, "That won't cut the mustard." I said, "You know, at that time, medical doctors called chiropractors quacks. They had no intention of referring." I said, so he said, "Well, that's what they told me. That's why I thought I had the chiropractors in there." He said, "What do I need to get your support?" I said, "You got to remove that mandate." He said, "Well, we'll do it, Titus." He said, "Let me tell you," he said, "my son Chip is coming up there tomorrow." This is a Friday. His Chip is coming up there tomorrow to help Hugh Gallen on his re-election campaign. He said, "I want you to meet with him and tell him what we have to do to remove that." So next day, I'm up there with Claire. We're over in the corner at the Wayfarer. That's that's Dunphy's place.
Right.
And there's a mob in there. The place is packed. Everybody wants to meet the governor, and they want to meet Chip Carter. So Claire and I are sitting there, and I said, "Claire, I think they're pulling my leg." I said, "There's no way in heck he can talk to me here." All of a sudden, you swear, Moses is spreading the ocean. And these two birds are coming directly at me, Hugh Gallen and Chip Carter. Big smiles on their face. They're coming right at me. I got one of those pictures. I'm going to give you that one too,
Okay.
Jim.
All right.
And he said, Chip Carter said to me, "Titus, Dad told me to talk to you about the Medicare bill and how we're going to get chiropractors included. You can see we can't do it here." He said, "It's too crowded." He said, "I want you to write me a one-page letter and tell me what we have to do." I said, "The last time somebody told me to write him a letter, it went right in the trash can." He said, No. He says, "I promise you, on the right-hand side of the envelope, on the right lower-hand corner, I'm going to give you a code. You put that code letter down there, it'll come right to my desk. I promise you." I said, "Okay." So within the next week, Rosalind Carter comes to my house. We had a tea for her. And we had, honest to God, there must have been 500 people outside my house.
Is that right?
They couldn't get in.
Yeah.
The Secret Service were there, and they couldn't let all these people in the house. So the house was packed. So we put we put lights outside and loudspeakers so they could listen to her presentation outside.
Mhm.
And when the presentation was over, she said, I feel terrible. These people are out there in the cold. And she's telling the Secret Service, I'd like to get these people to come in so I can let them know that Jimmy really appreciates them coming out. So the Secret Service said, the only way we can do that is we have to get the people in the house out and let them come in. So the people who were in there all had their coats in one of the children's bedroom.
Right.
So they escorted them all out the back door, and they brought people in the front door. So the people outside, they wouldn't let them back in again. So my kids are throwing coats out the window for the people. The people that came in early, they had to get their coats and pitching them out the window. But it was a great affair. And then she was kind enough to sit down afterwards, and she sat down. Oh, she said to me, Jimmy told me to give you these papers. Oh no, she said, you were going to give me some additional information to bring back. And I said, yes, I do have it for you. So I gave her some more, and it was, 2 or 3 days later, I get a phone call, Jim. ABC, CBS, and NBC call my house. Can we speak to Dr. Plomaritis? I said, that's me. They said, well, we went to the National Chiropractic Association in Washington, and we felt that they had something to do with this. I said, do with what? He said, the removal of the mandate. I didn't know that they removed the mandate. I didn't get any notification at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I told them, yes, I'm Dr. Plomaritis. They said, well, we called them, and they said they had nothing to do with it. It was a chiropractor up in New Hampshire named TitusPlomaritis. I said, really? So they said, we'd like to come out and do a story. I said, well, come on out. So they got on the next plane, they come out, and they did film for about an hour and a half. They took pictures of my sign, and they went back, they said goodbye, and they took all the stuff back. That night, for 3 minutes on national television, it showed the cameraman going into my office, and they had a picture of Carter Mondale on the wall as soon as you walked into my office.
Mm-hmm.
And the cameraman says, no, this is not Carter Mondale headquarters. This is, and the camera switched to outside on my road sign, which said Dr. Titus Plomaritis. This is the office of Dr. Titus Plomaritis. It was really amazing. And this thing went nationwide, all the way across the country. And once that happened, we went to, the governor asked me to become a delegate for Jimmy Carter. I said, okay, so I became a delegate in New Hampshire. I ran, I got elected very easily, and I went to Madison Square Garden because we got Jimmy Carter elected in New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
We won in New Hampshire. He beat Kennedy by, I don't know, 7,000 or 8,000 votes.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they gave me credit for this. And then with that now, I send this letter across to every chiropractor in the United States to help them nationwide to beat Kennedy in the primary.
Right.
So I'm in front of Madison Square Garden with this big picture with the Carter hat on and a poster, and the paper came out and it said, Ted quits.
Really?
Ted quits. I had the headlines in the paper. That's going to be one of the pictures I'll send you. You can put
right.
It's a great picture. You can put it in. So they gave me credit. This is on the front page of the Hellenic Chronicle.
Okay.
And it was in New York papers on the front page. But they had a picture of me with my Carter hat on and the Carter lapel. I was all dressed up like a clown. But he actually defeated Ted Kennedy, and they gave me credit for that. So those are my 3 major elections, campaigns, and I think that every one of them had, because what happened here was, by removing that mandate, it allowed 40 million Medicare patients to go to chiropractors without medical interference.
That's good.
So that's significant.
Yeah, that is significant.
So all 3 of these were very important campaigns that we hadn't covered in our other presentations here, Jim. I hope.
Oh, this is fascinating. This is this kind of reminds me of when my brother-in-law ran for president. The thing about the ropes and the in the Secret Service
Right.
and all
I
that.
had to have a lapel on. I had a pin on my lapel.
On your lapel,
and
right.
it said, "This is to let the Secret Service know that you're part of the team."
Right, so
Right.
I had that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
All these stories are in the book, Jim. These are, that's why this
I
is-
know they are. I've
this-
read the book.
This book here, to give the book a plug, I presented at Boston University a week ago last Friday, and they gave me a real good turnout there. They made a good presentation. I'm giving another major presentation in Pelham, New Hampshire at the library on December 10th.
Okay.
And 100% of all the proceeds from the cost of the book go towards scholarship. The Plumaritis Family Foundation, 100% goes to scholarships. Students' price for the book is $25. Adults is $40.
Right.
What else can I tell you?
That pretty much covers it. I've put you on WCAP and I've put you on LTC.
Right. And it's the book is available on Amazon. It's available on every major bookstore, Barnes and Noble. It's on. It's available everywhere, Jim.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, that's good to know. It's I'll tell you, it's been a real education having you come down here and tell me your stories.
Jim, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it, and I'm anxious to see this on television.
Yeah, we'll get you a copy. This is Jim Peters with Peters Principles, and this has been Dr. Titus Plomaritis, the very famous person from Pelham, New Hampshire, who grew up in Lowell. Thank you, Dr. Plomaritis.
Thank you again, Jim. I appreciate it.
All right.